meeting, and at this time, just once again, thank you to all of our employees for their years of service. And at this time, we'd like to turn it over to Mr. Brent Bowden, Principal, there he is, of Brewerton Elementary, for the spotlight on this elementary school.
Check, test, there we go. So good evening. Good evening. I wanted to thank the Brewerton staff and Brewerton parents that ended up bringing the kids in today for tonight's music performance. Thank you very much for coming. So just wave at me. Staff, parents. So I just wanted to make tonight a little bit of a highlight on our music program here at Brewerton. But I wanted to tie our music program to the attributes and competencies of the Central Square learner. So, Mrs. Horn, if you want to go one slide. So what I did is I went through all of the attributes and competencies of the Central Square learner, and I kind of pinpointed the ones that I think we develop just naturally in our music program, and I turned them red. So you can kind of at an arm's length see the percentage of the attributes that we really do develop with our music programs here. Being an active listener, you can't do band or chorus without it. Accepting feedback and having a growth mindset, being a team player and being well organized. And I would even say at the very, very bottom, be a confident decision maker. I probably could have made that red too. You got to know when to play and play out confidently. So, next page. We've got to know how to solve problems, take risks. The kids were really nervous being out here. They took a risk to step out here on this stage, and we want that for our kids. We want them to be comfortable doing that. We start them off in 4th grade, standing out here. Where are they going to be when they're a senior or off in college? So using their resources to construct knowledge, reflecting on their actions, self-managing, and being innovative and creative. Those are all things that we're developing with our music program. Mrs. Horn, one more. There's that grit and perseverance. The first time you try, you squeak. The 1000th time you try, you end up with music like we have today. So adaptability, self-awareness, inquisitiveness, resilience, and respectfulness. I think we teach those regularly with our music program here at Brewerton and across the district. And the very last slide, our kids learn to be productive. They're culturally aware with the repertoire of music that we put before them. Fiscally informed and responsible. A lot of the instruments we hand these kids are worth hundreds of dollars, and they have to be responsible with them. And they are accountable for their actions. So I think our music program is invaluable at developing a lot of the attributes and competencies that you all and we all together see as very important for our students. And with that, I would like to hand this show over to Mr. Timothy Charles Gross, Senior. Our band teacher.
Yes, I'm a proud senior. So this is my 9th year in this building. I've been here for 18 years, and this building is really, really nice building to be a part of. When I took over for Lynn Daly back in 2010, she said, "You're going to love Brewerton," and she was right. I really loved being at this building. The 4th and 5th grade teachers here are absolutely wonderful to work with. They're very flexible with me, especially when we have all these 2-hour delays and half days, and it's been quite a mess. But I'm always begging them, please, can we do something about rehearsals? And they're always willing to help me. And Mr. Bowden is always so very supportive, and just like every principal that I've had here at Brewerton. And I just want to thank Mr. Brown for the opportunity.
Just a little better, though. It's a good catch-all.
And I just want to thank Mr. Brown for the opportunity for highlighting the music program tonight. So, basically my day is small group lessons and large group band rehearsals. So for group lessons, there's basically three major goals. And the first one is establishing a very solid foundation. Just like the foundation of a house, what happens at the elementary level affects the whole structure of the band program. That includes holding their instrument, their hand positions, their embouchures, tonguing, everything that goes into playing a band instrument. And my job is setting them up for success in the upper grades, and establishing really good habits. Because just like with any habits, there's bad habits that are really hard to correct. Music literacy. So I'm always asking, when I'm evaluating my students, is like, are the students deeply understanding what they are playing? And it has to do with the basics of reading their notes and rhythms and rests correctly. So I do take my time very much at the beginner level, so that they have these solid foundations. And one thing that's really important is sight reading, is always giving them new music to put in front of them. And one thing that the district purchased for me last year is these sound innovations, and they're full of chorales that the kids play, and they're full of sight reading. And it really shows, because through the year we get to a harder chorale, and they're able to just play it. I have them, it's just like, okay, scan it. Okay, now let's play it, and they're playing it, pretty perfectly as they go along. So it's all about reading. I threw up there automatic conditioned response. That's really the essence of playing an instrument. Responding automatically, physically and mentally to the task at hand, just like picking up a pencil or just reading any words, like the word cat. I show the kids that in their lessons. But it's all about the reinforcement and practice. Because I really hammer it home with the kids and with the parents that practice is where the magic happens. Is the time at home, spending practicing time. And Josie Georges is like a perfect example of that, because she's a very good practicer. And so, the music, I gave her the Star Spangled Banner. I said, here, this is much harder than anything that she's done. I gave it to her, and she came back the next day and said, here, I can play it. So, and I knew that she could. So it's because her foundation was so good. So band rehearsals, beginners, they're all about just keeping a steady beat together, and then with different parts. So we stress big time. We talk about teamwork. Teamwork meaning being responsible for their own parts, listening around them, and watching them. There's a lot of activity going on when they're in a band rehearsal that they have to get used to. And then with the intermediates, I spent a lot of time, expanding the musical elements with a much better sound, like more variety of tempos and dynamics and articulations. Especially tempos. Like I always have this particular formula that I do for my concerts. And the third piece I always do is a slow piece, because kids love to play loud and they love to play fast. So it's always a challenge to get them to slow down and play with musicality. And that's always usually the last tune that I give them. And also playing with, of a much mature sound. I always talk to them about graduating from an elementary type sound to a middle school type sound. All right, so events. So there's a bunch of events that happen. We have the winter and spring concerts. Thank goodness we didn't have to do any snow dates this year for the winter concert. Grandparents' Day. If you've ever been here on a Grandparents' Day, it's an amazing event that happens every year here. And our band performs 2 of their 4 pieces every year when they're here. The NISBA Solo Festival. I started doing this. I usually in the past, I used to wait until the middle school for them to do the NISMA Solo Festival, but I started doing it about a few years ago, and I've increased the numbers there. NISMA Solo, what the students have to do is they have to learn a piece of music, and they have to prepare it, and then they have to memorize 3 scales and do a sight reading piece in front of an adjudicator, and it takes a lot of courage and preparation to do that. The levels always go through from 1 to 6, and I always send them at a 1. My numbers have been increasing. This year I'm sending a fewer students, but I've really been pushing for NISMA solos over the last few years, and it really benefits the kids. And then we have the District Band Festival, which we had a couple of weeks ago, and it's that's probably my favorite event of the year, because the 5th graders can see what the 8th graders are doing, and see what the high schoolers, so they can kind of get a feeling of where they're going to be in the future. So with that, I just want to thank you for all your support of the music program.
And then we have some of the students that were able to stay for the second portion of this presentation, and Mrs. Love is going to be presenting the general music and choral music programs.
And then I'll go back. So I just wanted to talk about our 4th and 5th grade choruses. Thank you. Our 4th and 5th grade choruses, we've had a huge increase in numbers in the last year. We have started a lot of focus on working together in the district to kind of sometimes pick some of the same songs, but definitely the same quality throughout the district, grade 4 and 5. So that when they're getting to 6th grade, they've already had some of the same experiences. We're making sure we're doing 2 parts, which you heard a little bit of today, using a live accompanist, which Mr. Grove has been awesome at helping us out. He actually volunteered all of his time to work with our courses this year and last year, and I really thank you for that, Mr. Grove. We also, in 5th grade right now, are all district numbers. From last year, we had 5 kids. This year, we have almost 30 kids who joined the all-district chorus just through enthusiasm and realizing that it was a really great concert last year. So here are some of the performances that we've added. We have our regular concerts in the winter and spring. And then the 5th grade all-district concert is this week, right now, as we speak. Well, they may be done now. But they were doing their dress rehearsal, and there's a concert this week. There's going to be over 100 5th graders from throughout the district performing together. And then the Brewerton 5th grade will perform, as well as all of the other elementary schools. So we'll have about 5 groups performing on Wednesday. So you're all invited to come to that if you want to. Also, we have added the 4th and 5th grade band concert. It's not added, it's on May 20th, so please come on out to that. We are doing our school performance for Flag Day. We'll do the national anthem, and we will sing the national anthem at the Brewerton Speedway on June 14th, which is a new event for us. Last year we were able to be with the Chiefs, and this year I said, well, let's do something local, and we'll be with the Brewerton Speedway. Now can we go back to that last slide? Thank you so much. So I'm here to teach K through 5 general music and chorus. I started last January. I absolutely love working here. It's been a pleasure to work here. Since starting as a new music teacher last January, our students are experiencing music through singing, dancing, listening, and using technology. When I introduce music notation to my students, even as early as kindergarten, I am teaching them that they are learning a new language, and that is so exciting for them. We start right from the basics, not just ABCs, we're using do, re, mi's, and tas and tadis. So you'll see, throughout the district, we've tried to unify how we're teaching it, using the same syllables, starting even as early as 2nd grade with counting music. So trying to work as a team with Ron Herney and Ellen LaForte, trying to work together to make sure we're all in the same place has been really important for us. Throughout the district, oh wait, just that. So we have, using technology, I wanted to show on the board, on the overhead, we have been able to compose and respond to music. We use Nearpod, Seesaw, and Google Classroom. And this first sample on the screen over in the left-hand corner, that is written by a first grader, so they were able to compose a 4-beat pattern using quarter notes and eighth notes. And then the second one is a composition on a 3-line staff that a second grader wrote, and I'll sing it for you. It goes like this: so, mi, la, mi, so, mi. So they are very excited about being able to sing it themselves and then perform it on an instrument as well. So that's in K through 2 music. In 3rd grade, we start really focusing on those pitches, adding a 5-line staff and playing the recorders. Our 4th graders are also continuing on their recorders. We are earning our belts in recorder karate, and we've also started using ukuleles in both 4th and 5th grade. We were able to purchase ukuleles, 40 ukuleles for the district, so we're sharing them between 3 buildings right now, and then next year we'll try to get some more for Millard Hawk. So we have 13 that we use and the students share, but they are able to teach each other. They are able to work together to help each other fix their fingers, fix the sound. Oh, that doesn't sound right. I think you should fix this. They really, really work together, and that's in both 4th and 5th grade. So right now, we have our 4th graders waiting so patiently. They are going to perform for you on the ukuleles the first chord that we learned, which is the C chord, and some of our chorus stayed by so that we could all sing Are You Sleeping, and maybe we'll do it in French too. Okay, so thank you everyone. Here is our 4th graders again.
Promised cake, and there's cake right there. So I don't know if you can carry cake and a ukulele at the same time, but you can grab a slice and head that way. And parents, thank you so much for being patient and sticking around with us. If you want to go out that way and meet them in the music room, you can pick them up. Thank you so much. That's all I've got for you.
Rumor had it you were going to do a solo, Mr. Brown. That's the only reason I came tonight.
It'll be so low you won't be able to hear it.
We prefer you do actually. We're far, far away. All the people. Thank you, Mr. Brown. And all the-
I know that's what I was going to say.
Brent. Yes. There's one to run on the cake, cookies to fill it and stuff.
What's that? No, still want to be in
All right, Mrs. Galvan, where is she? Oh. I don't know how you drew the short straw following all that, but we now have a presentation on ESSA by Mrs. Galvan.
I got to go over there. Obviously, people were real excited to see the board meeting tonight.
It's going to be a riveting 4 minutes.
Aaron's not my report. Oh, that would be me, but that could be fun. Good evening, folks. I'm here to talk to you a little bit about ESSA and school district accountability. One of the things that most of you are aware of is back in February, I think it was February 6th, we sent home a letter notifying our families and all of you folks that we have been noted as a targeted district and a comprehensive support improvement school. I'm here to tell you just a little bit about that. First, I'll tell you about ESSA. The Every Student Succeeds Act is a law that outlines how the states can use federal monies to support public education. In January of 2018, the federal government approved New York State's plan to spend approximately $1.6 billion that the state receives under ESSA. The main focus of ESSA is equity and accountability. New York State's committed to ensuring that all students succeed and thrive in school, no matter who they are, where they live, where they go to school, or where they come from. Since the fall of 2016, New York State has asked for feedback to design a plan that improves equity, access, and opportunity for all students. We were part of that. We went out to BOCES, we worked with Chris Todd, we provided feedback, all the different school districts did, and then this is what came as a result. So I thought I'd start out by telling you a little bit about what determines the designation. New York State's accountability system uses a variety of indicators beyond the core academic subjects as part of the measurement tool. It's a little bit different than it used to be. So, the indicators include English language arts, math, science, social studies, but that's for high school designations only, progress in learning English or ELLs, English language learners. On a chart, you're going to see it as an ELP, that's an English language proficiency. Chronic absenteeism, graduation rate, again, that would be for high schools only. And then their newest is College and Career and Civic Readiness Index. That's related to the advanced coursework, CTE certificates, etc. And again, that's part of the high school designations. And beginning with this year's results, but not until next year, out-of-school suspension rates. So, I hope he's come and talk to me. Okay. So just to talk to you a little bit about the indicators in the new scoring system. Student academic achievement, that's based on a composite performance index. It's a formula that measures our achievement on New York State assessments in ELA, math, science, and again, if we were measuring high schools, we would be looking at social studies as well. They have a formula that establishes the overall student growth and how the students perform in ELA and math for students in 4 through 8 by comparing the scores of students the current year to similar prior years. We are attempting to make academic progress in the long term, and then they have measurements of interim progress along the way. And again, your graduation rates are looked at, and they're measured out for 4, 5, and 6-year graduations against long-term goals and measures of interim progress. So we are considered a targeted district because of the identification of the comprehensive support improvement versus a targeted support and improvement schools within the district. Well, how do you get there? Well, you have to be in the low 5% in New York. Those are how we become identified as a comprehensive school and support, and it's based on student performance. They give us a number of different scenarios that are going to be on a chart that's behind you, so that's probably not all that helpful now that I look at it. And we're going to talk about what scenario. Pearl, would you go down just a little bit? You're about 3 slides ahead of me. That's all right. I'll try to keep up with you. Okay. Because I just want to go over the factors and the indicators. It also is broken up into subgroups. So we had a couple of subgroups where we didn't perform at a proficient enough level. The subgroups were economically disadvantaged and Hispanic population. So, which I know was a little bit of a surprise to all of us because I didn't even know that we had enough students to make up a subgroup of Hispanic population. But we do. Now, those are areas,
We got dinged for Hispanic population not meeting it or something?
no, the
But them not
performance.
meeting the.
Them not meeting the growth
The
performance.
Hispanic
index.
population?
How
Yes.
many are in that group in our district?
You need at least 30 tests, right. So it's not necessarily the students.
It could be 4 students that make the 30 tests. It's the number of tests, not the number of.
Right, it's a number of different tests that
So
they
you look at
take.
4th grade, 3rd grade, you look at 5th grade, you put all those tests together, and when they equal that number, that's it.
So it's gonna be 10 kids taking 3 tests, but 30. Is that
Correct.
correct?
Yeah, that's exactly right. And then, of course, our larger population is our economically disadvantaged, and our population at the middle school is 43.49% there. So that's a pretty large subgroup. So again, going back to the indicators, English language proficient, chronic absenteeism, and the college and career readiness. So the indicators, it's all based on 2017-18 data. Sorry, Pearl, I forget to tell you to move up this slide. So you see the little flow chart. It's based on the 2017-18 data. Levels 1 through 4, the way it's set up. You can end up a good district, good standing district because of all your schools being in good standing, or you could end up a target district. We are a target district. Within the target district, there's 2 more components. The comprehensive support and improvement school, that's a 3-year designation. We're designated right now, that means we have some potential problems. We have this year to kind of remedy that. If we don't remedy that, then we will be on that list for the next 3 years. We have the Targeted Support Improvement School, that's an annual identification, and our scores are not significantly low enough to end up in that category. So again, it's a 1 through 4 rating. 4 is the highest. Every indicator refers to the different subgroups. I'm going to kind of try to break up the scenarios. The chart, slide it up just a little bit more, Ms. Pearl. So they say that you have scenarios. So you can have a 1, a 2, a 3, and a 4. 1 and 2 are the lowest. The way the middle school turned out is we are a scenario 2. Our subgroups, we have subgroups that both scored a level 1. So that gives us the comprehensive support and improvement status. How do we do that? Like I said, that's our Hispanic population, and the number of tests that they took equal at least 30, and then our economically disadvantaged as well.
Can you elaborate on that a little bit more? You're talking, how many students?
I think there was 28 students in our Hispanic population.
Okay.
And if, of the 28, they take 3 tests a year, and it's a 2 years worth of data, so it could be up to 60 exams.
Okay.
I know. So we also had some other issues that we were looking at that gave us some potential concerns, and that was at the elementary level. So of course, we always want to offer the best that we can for all of our students, so we're going to look at it as a broad scope and an opportunity to make our programs better. Plus, they're going to come in and kind of help us do that. Elementary, all the elementary schools are in good standing. However, some of the areas of concern that are considered potential issues were student growth in ELA, math, or both, and chronic absenteeism. Chronic absenteeism also came up at the high school level, so we have to take a look at that as well. So how do we get rid of this status? How do we move off the list? Well, the easiest way is to have other schools, because New York State designates the lowest 5%, is to have people perform worse than us. But that's not really what we're going to shoot for. But it is kind of funny that they say that. Well, people could do worse than you, then you'd be off the list. And I was like, okay, well, I'd rather kind of, like I said, enhance our programs. If we have things that we can improve upon, then by all means, let's do that. So our composite performance level and our student growth level need to both be a 2 or a higher. And that's how we'll do that. Now, how do you get there? Go ahead, Pearlie, slide it up just a little bit. So here are some of the requirements that we have to, and these were in that letter that went home on February 6th, which led to this presentation. We have to conduct annual surveys of parents, students, and staff. Those are going to be coming out relatively soon. Arena's working with Linkit. We're going to use the federally recommended survey, and that'll be going out as soon as we sign the contract with Linkit. Then we're going to undergo a comprehensive needs assessment that's going to inform a school improvement plan. We're going to develop this annual improvement plan that includes at least one evidence-based intervention. And what evidence-based intervention will that be? Well, we'll know more because the feds are going to come in and they're going to do a review. They're going to walk our buildings for 3 days in May. They're going to interview parents, they're going to interview students, they're going to interview staff, they're going to go into our classrooms, and then they're going to make some recommendations. We'll also be working with a consultant. Now, we got to pick our consultant. We happen to have a phenomenal individual coming in that's going to give us some advice and some things that we'll need to do as well. We have to participate in this budgeting process, which is excellent. We will get $25,000 for the district and $25,000 for Central Square Middle School. That'll fund the surveys, the consultant, and all of those things. So at least, I know that the government has a habit of giving us a bunch of regulations and mandates, but not funding them. We are at least being funded through these. And
So I'm just, so that I get the money is funding the outside stuff. That's not anything internal though, right? I mean, the reality is we still have all internal staff that are diverting. Someone could say that it's pulling attention away from other things and we're following this for 0.007% of our student population, right?
someone could say that.
Just making sure.
But the goal is, in working with a consultant, is the work that we'll be doing will align with our strategic plan. And I'm going to guess that once we put all the same kind of things that we're working together with the initiatives that we have and the mission and action statements that we're already working with, it'll align pretty well.
So if I could jump in, yeah, so to Andy's point, exactly, we're not creating a separate committee, the ESSA committee, to be able to just focus on this. We're building upon what we've already done with the C-Square plan with a good variety of stakeholders in all the different buildings. We're moving forward with that, and this is going to be part of that. So we're not going to your point, we're not going to be just focusing on something that the state has now deemed us, that, you know, many different schools, and then all of a sudden they're on, then they're off, and then they're on, and then they're off. So that's the bigger picture. We're not losing our focus.
No. The committee will work together. So the people that are on C-Squared and the middle school review team will make it all one committee. We'll all work together. Because again, it wasn't just middle school issues. When you look at the numbers where they're potential, that's elementary. Then there's potentials at the high school. So that's why I said, if we just make it a K-12 broad review, a needs assessment, take a look at what we're doing. Let's take a look at our practices. Kind of like we've been doing anyway with our learning rounds and all that. And then we make some recommendations that way.
Yeah, because I have two questions. One, who are the federal folks that are going to be coming in?
State ed.
State ed?
State ed.
So do we know who they are?
Not yet.
No, not yet. Because I have a big concern that they're going to deviate from your strategic plan, our strategic plan, and the things that we're working on. So I don't know if it's possible or not.
They'll make recommendations, and the way I understand it, again, part of the challenge of this is Arena and I go to the training on March 27th and 28th, but our preliminary plan was due on February 15th. So we've gotten some feedback from some of the individuals that we work with, and we'll know more really at the end of March, but we didn't want to wait.
And it's really more a partnership. They'll come in and see what you're doing, and the recommendations are about how you can enhance it, do it better, and then if anything is amiss, of course, they'll point that out, but they really want to work hand in hand with you.
Right.
Yeah, 'cause I was wondering, could we get them in front of the board? It would be.
That's not what they do.
I kind of hear the scariest words of my life in this whole thing.
The government is here to help.
Yeah.
So when I worked at overseas, I've done many of these reviews, so they would often recruit me to do a review or send a field person. So I've been on these reviews. It's not threatening. It's a very good process. As a matter of
Remember
fact.
the lab plan that we had talked about last year? There was a lot of discussion about a lab plan that used to be in existence for the high school. When I was at CSI a long time ago, we were on, I think then they called it a QUIP. They call it something different every couple of years.
That's special ed. That's a different thing.
but it's the same kind of thing where they come in, they do a review, they make recommendations, you do some program and planning. And every time we've done it so far, we've gotten better. So I guess I'm not thrilled, but I haven't had a negative experience with it yet.
Okay.
Yes.
It just concerns me that the work that you all have done, this is a big organization, right? And you're trying to get everybody in, how you're learning, you're developing your plans, how people are getting evaluated. You've got an awful lot in a new, I would call it a different direction, not but a different direction, than have somebody come in that we've got to change course and have evaluated and recommended when they, I don't know how 3 people can come in and within 3 days or whatever, 3 visits, determine how this district is performing, not performing, and looking at what you're doing.
And the thing too, Steve, it's not new. So when I was an elementary principal, there was a LAT team, local assistance team. We did what we had to do. We were off that. Another school in the district popped back on. This has been going on for the longest time. I mean, I'm very frustrated too when they come in and don't really understand our population, our needs, or the fact that one of the subgroups, we don't even have any of those students anymore. So the bottom line is we have to comply with certain things, but we don't have to make a focus deviating from what we're already doing.
Yeah, because you're taking the measurement of 30 students, right, and the economic condition of our population. I don't know, one would take a pretty big magic wand to change. Sure. You know what I mean? To raise everybody's income. I mean, it's a pretty big lift. So I just, okay, all right.
When we're done, when the review has occurred, and we have their recommendations, and we have our strategic plan, we'll be back. And we'll talk to you about what that entails.
Absolutely.
My only message to the consultant or to the state ed would be, and this is going to sound funny or a joke, and it's not, I really think ESSA should have more initials. And it should be ESTWTSA. And that is every student that wants to succeed at. Because the fact of the matter is, we've got parents and students that they don't want to succeed. They do not want to succeed. 70, 80, 120 days absent, and we're getting dinged for this nonsense. That's got to go back to state ed some way, shape, or form. I'd be more than happy to deliver the message. I'd love to see them sit in. They don't have the guts. They don't have the spine to sit in front of us. That's why they won't. Because somebody asked they should come and present to us. They don't have the guts. They don't have the, you know what, to sit in front of this board or any board in this state. But they drive it down to everybody else and like, you people be the messenger. This is not against you folks. But that's really bothersome. And I don't care how many lab plans, this plan, told plan after plan after plan. I've been on this 7, 8 years. It's every year it's another plan. And I'm not sure it drives results because you've got that population, and I'm not talking the Hispanic population. I don't want to be caught on that one. That just, I don't know what we can do. They're not going to be successful. And we got to face the facts and put our resources towards the other 99.003% versus the whatever it is. So that's my spiel.
And you also have parents that do not understand the testing. They want to say that it's still the way it was 2, 3, 4 years ago, and they still don't understand it. I guarantee you they didn't read that letter that was sent out in February. Or if they did, they don't understand it. And I'm just concerned that we're still going to get more people, more kids, more parents saying, my kid's not taking that test, so then when they go to 9th grade and they need to take a Regents, how are they going to be able to function in a Regents?
And actually, at the end of my presentation, I think we can actually maybe tell you that.
Oh, good.
So Pearlie, if you would just, I'm sorry, Mrs. Horn. Pearlie, let that slide up a little bit. Okay, so here's just a little timeline. So in the spring, right about now, like I said, we're going to have our review. Then we're going to develop a plan. And then in next year, we'll implement that plan. And again, right now, our goal is we're going to make it part of our strategic plan anyway. We were going to do that anyway. We were going to develop something with best practices, and we're not going to deviate from our goal to provide excellent educational opportunities for our students. we'll meet the requirements that we have to meet, we'll do what we have to do, but at the same time, our kids will still end up better in the end. So, is in the next slide also a little picture, I kind of did a little, what's it gonna look like? So we're gonna have the review of all of our resources, review of our practices, review of the data, then we'll set up some priorities, and that priority then will become our, and this SEP plan, the School Comprehensive Educational Plan, that's been around for years. It was the, what did it used to be called? Compact for Learning, and, well, I know, that's like 30 years ago, but, you know, our shared decision-making, our CINI-DINIs, all those lists that we've been doing for years, they just kind of changed the initials. So DISTI is the diagnostic tool for school and district effectiveness. That's the survey that we'll be using. And then I was kind of going to be funny and just say, but Tom had said, or I guess it was Tim that just said it needed some more letters. Here's some of the letters in our quiz, and it is kind of like alphabet soup because they do. They make everything an acronym, and then the acronyms get more and more confusing and sometimes intimidating. I'm not intimidated, but I don't really intimidate that easily. So, does anybody have any questions for me?
Connie, what's the purpose of the survey to the, what exactly is that entail?
Well, there's a number of different components. So they talk about like community and family engagement. How are we engaging and supporting our families? That's one of the pieces of it. Then there's a professional development survey. Are we providing quality professional development? And then there's another component about how we're handling social emotional learning, because that's a really big piece of ESSA right now. And
That's all to the parent, or those are different surveys?
They're all different surveys, and they'll go out in different components. And then when they actually come, they'll survey. I think we have to provide, is it 12 parents? We'll know more after the 27th.
Okay.
For them to actually.
So this is not going to every parent in the district?
The surveys will go to every parent in the district.
Surveys will go to every parent.
Yeah, they have to.
Okay.
And then there's a climate survey that goes to staff and students. It's really broad. So it's good data. Well, you know, we had talked about doing a climate survey anyway. Now we'll be doing one. And somebody else will have to pay for it, and the federal government will pay for it.
And last question is, every parent that has a student in the district, I would not get one, for example, correct?
That's a really good question.
Well, that's correct. Yeah, fair.
So sorry, but it's a good topic. So it goes to every parent in the district. The state historically likes to assign numbers for, you know, how many, what is acceptable to them for participation. So is there any expectation on this survey?
I don't know that yet.
Are we dinged if we don't hit it?
I don't know that yet until after we spend 2 straight days of training. Now, we've emailed them, 3 different times, because they keep saying, if you have any questions, send them here. So my last email, my question was, when are you going to answer my questions that I keep sending you, because you still haven't answered the first 2 rounds of emails of questions. And then Irena sent them all, and I thought, well, maybe they just didn't want to answer me, so Irena sent them all, and they're not answering her either.
But it-
That's shocking to hear. That's shocking.
Well, they're overwhelmed, I'm telling you. So in answer to your question, I don't believe they'll put a number on that. What they want to see is that you really made your best effort to get people to respond. So they want to see it on your website. They want to see that you provided people an opportunity to do it on paper. That when you had an open house, you had places for people to be able to answer your survey. So with most surveys, if you get 25% people responding, you've done well. So, and I will do better than that. We typically do.
So, Irena, you said you've been part of these processes before.
Yeah.
And the one thing that kind of pops out is the absenteeism, which we've talked about kind of vigorously here. So in your experience, how has that been solved in the past?
Well, actually, chronic absenteeism was not an indicator before. This is new to ESSA, chronic absenteeism. So, but there are programs out there about how to decrease your chronic absenteeism. So we would have to research those, see if they fit our population, because not everything fits every school. We would have to look at those. Right now, our data coordinator that we get from the city RIC is producing a monthly chronic absenteeism report that our principals are looking at on a regular basis, so they know who to be contacting and how frequently. So we're starting to push out some of that work right now.
Well, I appreciate your enthusiasm.
Well, but, you know, we have to always want to do better, right? We
And-
always want to do better.
Like the counselors are now pulling in the kids, meeting with them individually when they're here, making phone calls home. We have always sent the letters, but now we're trying to make it more personal and interactive. But again, they aren't here, so it's hard to meet with the kids. And sometimes those parents aren't the ones that readily answer the phone either.
But what we have increased is the number of educational neglect that we're gonna go after the parents, because it is their responsibility to do that. So you got to make some parents uncomfortable, obviously, to be able to take care of that. And that's what we're doing.
If you remember, a couple years ago, there were parents arrested in Watertown for this exact thing.
And you've also increased the services, social and emotional services to students as well. So if school is not engaging them or school is threatening to them, we have some services that we can put in place.
Right, like the Red Hawk program that we've talked to you folks about so many times. That has improved student attendance. The kids that are going to that program are now coming to school because they are more comfortable. So that's one of the ways that we've done it.
Because there are some students that do fall through the cracks, that did have a traumatic thing happen to them in their lives, that they stay home. A program like that, it's such a tight-knit community within that Red Hawk, with Jenny Bianco and what these guys are doing, they want to come to school. It's all the other ones that have kind of beaten the system of just staying home, and parents have basically just said, it's not my responsibility anymore. No, it is your responsibility, and this is what educational neglect is. So.
Tom, just to clarify, are you getting more support from the county with respect to those referrals? So it was my understanding before that, you know, calling DSS and making these filings and complaints often was met on deaf ears, and they just...
So there's been a big kind of change in DSS, and all the superintendents in this county have stepped up collectively, have met with DSS, and they are much more listening to the things that we have to say, and chronic absenteeism is one of them. So we are definitely moving in the right direction. What I want to segue now, and Connie, if you're done, I can segue, because you had just alluded to something a little while ago with state testing, and I know you had mentioned that as well.
I got another question.
Go ahead.
How far below the 5% line in both those categories are we?
I don't know the answer to that. They just give us a 1, 2, 3, or 4, and we were a 1 in both areas.
Gotta know how much we gotta shoot.
All right, well, 1 is the lowest, so right now, but again, I think the number moves. The 5% will move based on how every other district performs. But our score of a 1 to 4, we're 1s in both areas.
Pretty much.
It wasn't by a nice Spanish teacher like me, I assure you.
But Connie, is it fair to say, and again, it's just working off of the presentation, is it if we were 2s, 3s, or 4s, we wouldn't be on this list?
So if you look at the chart that goes back and forth, it shows you the different ways you can get on it.
But it
So
looks like most of those were level 1.
1s and 2s are not good.
Okay.
Just as we get further along, when I say we, you guys, if you can just make sure to come back to the board, let us know. Because for instance, your comment about, you know, if you have questions, send it here. Those are the sorts of things that frankly, when we have like lobbying days in Albany or even local, that's the sort of info we need to like go. Because we go there and we just sometimes, and I'm not talking about our board members, but in general, board members spout off at their frustration, but they don't have tangibles, something like that.
Sure.
So if you can let us know those pain points on anything with state ed, that helps a lot for those days.
Sure.
And sadly, it's become expected, like I laugh and go like, oh, that's not a surprise, that's sad. I mean, it's just sad that they just don't, I mean, it blows my mind, like, just don't answer, like, oh, well, I'm busy. I'm busy too.
I'm busy.
I got a shitload to do. I still answer questions.
The offices in state ed have drastically decreased, but the only one that hasn't decreased is the Office of Accountability. So that speaks volumes. But something I definitely want to touch upon is April 1 starts the whole state testing. And I know that some people, they think the opt-out movement and where it is right now is a way to get back kind of at the state. Now, I definitely want to say that 3 years ago, no doubt about it, this district was probably the highest in opt-outs because the testing was all done by an outside company. Teachers didn't do the tests. Now teachers are responsible for creating all of the test questions. They've done a lot to reduce. So what we're going to do this year is we're going to put a letter out showing all of the things that the state has done, reducing the amount of days testing and whatnot, and the fact that teachers are all making those. test, but we also want to share some evidence. And I know when I say this, there's people that eventually will watch this and will say, oh, wait a minute here. I strongly believe, and I've always believed, in opting out. I definitely want to share something because we were curious as a district. We were curious about those students now, because the opt-out movement had, we're talking about several years now. What did it look like for students that had never taken a 3 through 8 assessment test, let's say ELA, and then all of a sudden, how did they score on the English Regents exam? So we got the data. I tasked Arena to we put it on the Regional Information Center. We bought a certain amount of days every year for them to do work for us, and we tasked them, get us this information. So they did, they pulled it. And so for ELA, the average scores of students in Central Square that participated in at least one 3 through 8 ELA assessment prior to English Regents exam was a 79.08%. The average score of students who never participated in a 3 through 8 ELA assessment prior to the English exam was 62%. I have said this. I try to stay out of the whole political part of it, the opt-out, this and that, but here's the thing. People ask me now, parents ask me, Tom, if it was your kid, I say this. If your kid was running a marathon, and yet the kid never trained for the marathon at all, you're now expecting them to sit down at the Regents at the high school level where they can't opt out of those, and you're expecting them to take a rigorous exam that some kids have never sat for 2.5 hours to take a test. Until that changes, of the Regents exams, which you can't opt out of, the state testing has changed pretty considerably. What I want to do is still remind parents that is the right, although the commissioners made it really clear yesterday, and something that came out, that there is a 95% participation rate. And if we fall below that, what are those consequences? That's a different conversation. I'm simply saying, as the superintendent, when it comes down to actual data, do we want our students to take the state test and have that type of rigorous opportunity before they're taking a test that they have to take to be able to graduate? That's something I want the parent to understand and recognize, that we actually have that data. When it was math, it was a little less significant, because I do feel that it's more of just a rigorous writing opportunity with ELA, but the math scores were this. Average scores of students who participated in at least one 3 through 8 math assessment prior to Algebra 1 or CC Algebra Regents exam was 74.8%. Average score of students who never participated in a 3 through 8 math assessment prior to Algebra 1 or CC Algebra Regents exam was 71.7%. So there is a difference of about 3%. But there was much more of a gap in ELA, which makes sense, because for some students, it is a laborious process to sit there and to write that much. Until they change the requirements to actually graduate from high school, and they don't have Regents exams, that's something I just want parents to be aware of. Again, yes, it is still your choice, and we're going to craft a letter to let them know that, let them know exactly all of the changes that have been taking place in the past 2-3 years regarding state testing. But at the end of the day, yes, that is still the right of the parent, but we also want to be able to show those changes so the parents are making an informed decision, because it will impact their children. So we will get that out this week, because testing starts, I believe it was April 1st with computer-based testing. So that's that.
Those statistics will go in the letter?
Yes.
Good.
Yeah, it's data.
Yeah, and when Mr. Colbufo and I were talking about this kind of in prep for the meeting, that's something I said. That data for our district and his recommendation as our lead educator means a lot more than anything from the state. So my personal opinion, and board feel free to weigh in, was don't worry about the templates the state gives out, because I believe our community in general will react negatively to that. I think they will trust the recommendation of the superintendent.
I mean, I just wanted to have the data and then make that an informed decision to say, okay, this is how the test has changed. It's made by teachers. This is now, it's not linked to teacher growth scores, and I highly ever doubt it will be. They added another year to that moratorium. I don't think it will ever be linked to that. So at the end of the day, there have always been state assessments. Until they change the Regents exams, which I don't ever see happening, I just want the parents to make an informed decision, because it will impact them. But that will all be in the letter. Yep.
Everyone good on that topic? All right, then I turn over to Mr. Kobufo for the budget.
6 minutes.
presentation.
6
6
minutes.
minutes.
Put the timer in.
Do it. 8:15. Let's do it. Hold on, Andy. Don't start yet. Ready, Pearl? All right, click it. Forecast, this is the forecast 5 data. This is not anything new. This is based on live birth rate, so it is the most accurate depiction of what we are looking at as a district. The projection is 2024, you see 3,290 students. Again, that's based on live birth rate. Click it. Okay, I want to direct your attention to your budget packet board that you have in front of you. The first 4 slides that I'm going to show you, or that you have, are the following slides that I'm going to show you here. The next 24 pages are the details associated with each line item that you can look at your own leisure. This is this year's budget on the left. Next year's projected budget is on the right-hand side with a 6.75 increase, and I'm going to break that down and explain why that is 6.75. We reviewed the state aid numbers in January, and Maureen reviewed the property tax cap levy. As you see, in red you have state aid, and in yellow you have taxes. Next slide, Pearl. So what I'd like you to is direct your attention to where it says, there's 2 columns, so budget 2018-19, and the one right next to it, proposed 2019-20 budget. I want you to look at that. So I want you to now take a look, directing your attention to the building aid increase of almost 100%. You see it says 98.8% of an increase. And that is because it is estimated that our capital projects will be coming online, so it is imperative, and we've said this months ago, that the projects are able to move forward as they were originally estimated. And as you see, we have, our architects were here, and they've mentioned this before, and it is so crucial that we're able to stay on a timeline. Go ahead, click it, Pearl. This year's budgeted expenditures are on the left side and on the of the page, and the projected expenditures are on the right side of the page. We are starting out with a balanced budget. I'll wait for the applause. No, okay, thank you. Maureen has done a fantastic job. We've spent many hours sitting next to each other breaking all of this down. She's really done a wonderful job. Again, salaries are, you see the 47%, benefits are 27%. Then you have the 13% there, that is the BOCES expenditure. The 6% is the debt service. 5% is other, which is material supplies, technology, athletics, extracurricular items, and then the 2% is fuel. So, you can click it. Okay, these are the details per line item from the previous slide by the account codes required by the comptroller. So all school districts are required to break that down, and you have that. The rest of the budget that you have details for each of these linked to the expenditure code. So you have all of that to be able to look at. Look at the last row, transfers, other funds, which is the largest change in the expenditures because the debt service is correspondingly increasing with the budget aid, with the building aid, which is why it is a 35% increase in this one expenditure line. So that is why. Again, we talked about this all year long, and last year we anticipated this. Again, that's the correspondingly increase with the budget aid, with the building aid, with all of our capital projects. Click to the next one, Pearl.
Can I just ask a quick question? It's not a big deal, but Maureen or Tom, what is the reason that we are projecting a 33% increase in our legal service fees?
If you go to the detail of that page, the year that we closed last year, we were well over the $75,000 budget. So I'm kind of going with the difference. See, we spent $107,000.
Oh, I got you, okay.
So I'm kind of trying to gauge it, because I don't want to be too short.
Yeah.
And that was the legal fees regarding the capital projects and the sale of the buildings and all of that?
Not the capital projects, but.
Just the sale of the buildings?
Yeah, and we had a lot of employee matters.
Oh, that is
Yeah,
correct.
that's what I was gonna say.
Yes, we
Last
did.
year is a little different than this year.
Yes, it is.
Right?
Yes, it was.
That's why
Yes.
I didn't go that high, but I thought we just kind of.
Good point.
And just second, which is nothing but a kudos, but I'm thrilled to see the significant increase in the staff development budget, so thank you for that.
Yep. Okay, 74% of our budget, again, as the 27%, those were the benefits, the 47% were the salary, BOCES was the next little piece of the pie above the benefits, and then debt service, other, and fuel. Who are they? Where are they? Next slide, Pearl. These are the teachers. We do this every year. So these are where our elementary teachers are. So you can just take a look at, kind of just give you a snapshot. All right, Pearl? Here are the secondary teachers. All right, Pearl? District-wide teachers, again, these are our special education teachers across the district. It's important. And this is posted. People will be able to see these where our staff is. Total teachers, nice snapshot right there. The total, 319. All right, Pearl. Non-instructional supervisors. Nurses and monitors. Again, another snapshot for you. Teaching assistants. Building clerical. There you go, Pearl. District office clerical. Buildings and grounds. Transportation. There you go. Administrators. And then the individual contracts, district office. Grant supported salaries, again, this is where Title I funds come in. Again, we don't know. So far, they haven't touched the Title I like they had hinted a couple years back to the degree that we were worried about. We do have a lot of salaries in Title I. All right, Pearl. Okay, a big takeaway from this slide right here is the one-shot revenue. So what I want you to see is because we had building aid and debt service fall off last year, the 18-19 budget, which is our current budget, we had a zero change. For next year, it is coming back online, which it was discussed in the first two slides. So basically, we have 2 years of increase in 1 year. So when you look at that, we're kind of making up last year's where we didn't increase at all. We're making that up in this year right now. The 98% of districts staying within the cap, that's from the Association of School Business Officers, ASBO, and that was what what was reported. We are less than the average. Health insurance changes, the increased revenue, the one-shot revenue, those two items right there, that was a one-shot. Again, we did make a considerable amount of money when we went from the retrospective health care plan to the minimum premium plan. So that again, that was a one-shot deal. So those two things are the reasons why we are offering submitting a balanced budget. Next one, Andy. And actually, if you go back, the tax increase, as you see, is 2.72%, which is within the tax cap regulations. Budget includes, now there are things that obviously we're looking at, swing space use of CSI. These are possible situations. We've talked about it before. We've talked about it in different meetings with teachers, so I can say it now. Everything that we're doing, we're looking to be able to have a really good program for those 6 classrooms at CSI. So what we've said was, there's a really good possibility that Aaron will be working out of that building, had been an elementary principal for several years, And when Aaron can't be in that building, I would operate out of that building because I also was an elementary principal for 4 years. No different than when we had this year an elementary principal that was out for a considerable amount of time. Aaron was in there and I was in there. So those 6 classrooms will not go without. But we would have to get a clerical nurse and monitor. And the technology, it's going to allow us to be able to improve the technology for what they come back to. So we are excited about that. Again, I want to say, if we didn't have CSI as a swing space and we put out those bids, it could be pretty disastrous knowing the climate out there right now. You probably saw in a newspaper article that I alluded to a couple board meetings ago that North Syracuse put something out and they had 1 bidder. That is not what we want. It would not have been good if we put out a bid where we didn't have CSI and they had to work under those constraints of cleaning it up and then they would have to teach in the morning. Again, there are positions, 8 teaching assistants. We had unified basketball and bowling, 2 through 12 month sysops. Those are the technology TAs. Go ahead, Pearl. And city BOCEs. So on the left-hand side, these are all things that were not accounted for that we are using. And then other, as we had said, unified basketball, bowling, employee recognition, increase students to music instrument replacement plan, CSI swing space. So these are the things that will also, be coming out of the budget. Go ahead, Pearl.
Tom?
Yes.
What did you mean they're not accounted for?
So when we did this year's budget, those things on the left-hand side we didn't have. So when the year started, we didn't plan for those.
But they are in the...
Oh, yeah, they're in the, yes. Yeah, but when we started, we weren't talking about Forecast 5 Lab a year ago, but we realized this is something that we wanted to be able to do for, in Farnham services, that's the drug and alcohol counselors, those are things we're able to add in. Yeah, they're part of the budget, but they weren't originally planned. Good question. Where do we go from here? The retirement incentive, I'm very happy to say, I'm actually very sad to say, some of the teachers that weren't actually taking that incentive, and that incentive was just 5 years towards their health benefits. It wasn't the $10,000 or the last year, or 2017, the $20,000 as part of the incentive sum. That's not what this was. So really, I believe there were only 4, maybe 5 teachers that benefited from the years. The rest they had 30 years, they had 31, they had 32 years in, and they just felt, it's time for them to retire. That happens, it's normal. But with the breakage, it's at least $202,000 in savings. So how do we get breakage? We look at not just teachers with no experience, but we look at like the last 100 teachers that we employed, and we look to say, okay, now one of them might have been somebody with 10 years experience, so that goes into it as well. We don't pad the numbers and try to say, let's get the lowest ones to try to make it look like it, because we want a true representation of what the savings would be. So we know right now that it's pretty safe to say that at least a $202,000 savings with the breakage. And that is the difference between people that have been here 31, 32 years compared to the last 100 people that were hired. Declining enrollment positions, we're looking at elementary and we're looking through attrition. We never want to be able to have a missed opportunity when we're looking at the numbers and then it's just not replacing somebody. But again, Aaron has tirelessly worked to make sure we're not pulling to just try to save money. The pulling is when the numbers drop significantly lower, that now we can say it's not really warranted anymore. And we do, from that first slide, do have a declining population. Reading initiatives and positions, we really upped our game at the elementary level with the Reading League and the Oswego County Literacy Initiative. It has been producing amazing gains. At some point, Aaron will give an update showing. I've heard nothing but wonderful things from the elementary teachers about that professional development and just what's happening, what they're seeing with their students. It's a new approach to reading, and it seems to be working. Needs-based assessment, needs-based enrollment at the high school, and again, the 3 areas are health, business, and distance learning classes. So those are things that we're looking at. Next one, Pearl. Balancing the budget long-term. We had the sale of went in last week there. Yep, and now we had just an update. Everything is progressing very nicely with Cleveland Elementary, and it's soon going to be getting to the point where an offer is officially going to be made. I keep asking George Lee from Pyramid, and they're not just saying that now. They're sending people that are part of their Department of Budget, and they're starting the paperwork. So that's a very promising sign. Long-term plan for CSI, I believe that we have the very best, basically head of special ed that is out there, in Michelle Alanya. So in talking with her and looking at special ed programming or alternative education programming, but what are the things that we have at BOCES that we can replicate here, which is good at so many levels, which will make the students feel that they're part of the school community, but also could be a substantial savings to the district. The security capital project, we're going to be going into executive session today. Know more, a little bit more about that, but we know that there's going to be a certain amount of money that's going to come with that. And then the Smart Schools Bond Act and the money that we still have remaining. And big part of that is obviously the replacement plan that we are on for our Chromebooks and whatnot. Next one, Pearl. Getting budget smart. And then basically is the last slide. I think I'm at 5.5 minutes right now. And that basically...
Over. I hope you're better with numbers.
Yeah. Really? Am I over?
Yeah, we're gonna get this stated to evaluate.
You're on your third. These guys were like, that was 4 minutes, like 20 seconds ago. No, you're on your third set of 5. Yeah, so that's basically where we're at. We will be putting something out this week regarding the zones, the 2 voting zones, where they're going to be. We want to really get full saturation with that and let the community know exactly where they're going to be voting. The goal still right now is to match the safety and security capital project with that referendum when we vote in May. But again, we're not rushing it by any means. If it's able to be done, then we'll move forward with that. I have not ever shied away from saying that all of our entrances need to be done. And I know that once that referendum happens, it's about 2 years before the shovel hits the ground. So I would like nothing better. We're sitting in a building right now that's actually going to get a massive renovation in the front because you have to, because that long hallway and then the cafeteria that we're standing in right now. So all of the buildings are going to definitely need that. So with that ends my budget presentation, which a lot of this you've already seen.
Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you, Mr. Robles.
Can you go back to the second slide? No.
All right, with that, we'll move into reports. Under reports, E1 unfinished business, the data discussion, that is scheduled. Forecast, right? Yeah, forecast 5 is scheduled to come into our next meeting. So we'll get our first kind of update preview of whatever the dashboard is at that meeting. So with that, we'll open it up to Lord. Mrs. Wood, anything?
No, nothing.
All right. Our student board rep, absolutely.
We just had our student leadership conference last week, and it went pretty well. We had really good workshops and a really good speaker. She was amazing. She really engaged with the kids and everything. And I think we had around 200 students show up, and I think around 12 schools. And there was it was a mix between middle schoolers and high schoolers. So it was really nice because we got younger kids to come and see what's going on, and I think everyone really enjoyed it.
Okay.
Very nice.
Nice. Thank you. Anything else? Thank you. Open up to the rest of the board. Anything?
Yeah, the retirement incentive thing. My question is this: when we have like a tier 1 or tier 2 teacher roll off, right? I mean, that probably saves much more money than like a tier 3 or 2, 4. I don't know if I'm using the right.
A veteran teacher?
Right.
Yes, that's the...
Depending on the pension plan, right? So when a teacher goes into this state where they're retiring due to an incentive, and then we bring in another teacher that's entering the retirement program, are we like having a snowball effect where we're seeing savings right now, but later down the road, we're gonna like all of a sudden have a bunch of retirement plans to pay for? Does that create some sort of a snowball effect on the retirement?
It's kind of
budget?
two separate things.
Right.
We don't control the retirement plan or the TRS.
Right.
And after 10 years of service, any employee in those plans, they no longer contribute to the plan. So whatever tier they're in, we'll decide how much money they get in retirement, but it doesn't change what we have to put in.
It doesn't change our
Right.
fiscal responsibility.
Correct. But they have now, they're up to tier 6, which is much,
They'll pay forever.
yeah, I was gonna say, they pay
Okay.
for life, number one, and the benefits aren't as big. So over a 25, 30-year period, the retirement system isn't gonna look like it does now with all the tier 1s that are still alive.
And the other big part of that, Phil, is so let's say you have a teacher that needed just 2 years or possibly 2.5 years, because that's really what it shook down to for those 5. So basically what they're saying is, okay, I will go now. We just made the number 5, but we'll go now, and then what's going to happen is we're not going to be on the hook to pay their last 2 or 3 years, where this last contract, that would be 3.6% plus their longevity bumps. And some of them have some pretty considerable longevity bumps that are in there. So that really makes the breakage huge. So you could have a teacher retiring at $90,000, then a new one coming in at $45,000 just for that one. So that's where you have the breakage there.
So are we planning on offering this like frequently then, like every year? Or?
So I want to be very clear. The big one, we had said 5 years. So I believe we still have 2.5 more years on that one from 2017, where it's the $10,000, $20,000. But if there's a situation that benefits the district, that if someone needs 2 more years and we can get that breakage, I don't want to do that. I don't want to do it because right now there's a teacher shortage. So originally, the 2 that came up to me were PE teachers, and there's not a teacher shortage for PE teachers. But you couldn't just say, well, just you 2 then, and not the other people, because we can't do that. So there were a couple of teachers that, it's not like they would have said, okay, well, I'm going to retire now then. They would have went for 2 more years to get that 100%. So I don't like the idea of saying, no, we're going to do it every year, because we're not. But at the same time, we don't know fiscally what it's going to look like, that if this means 3 or 4 years from now, because we're going to be good for 2 years, especially with the money from the retrospective minimum premium. But I don't want to say we'll never do that part if that means not having to cut people, because some people could look at that and go, you know what, I can retire now in these 2 years instead of going, then you don't have to cut these other people. But I definitely think it's responsible for us to say, we're not going to offer that big one that we had said, the original 2017. We said 5 years, we should stay pretty true on that.
And the one thing I'd say to that is, what was said the last time we had the big discussion on this, number one, it's our opinion only, because the reality is every 2 years you can have 2/3 of the board new, right? So we can't decide for the future. But the superintendent has to propose a retirement incentive, and so the board has to weigh it at that time. So I get what you're saying, and we can express our opinion. The reality is, I think if the board, no matter who's on it, it's kind of silly if it makes financial sense to not consider it. Our desire is certainly not to do it every year, and so I think we're pretty much still in line with that. But
Can I just add one thing? Now remember, we can't add years into their retirement system. All we're doing is adding years towards their health insurance benefit.
okay.
That's a key point of clarification.
Yes.
Oh, absolutely.
And I wasn't sure if that's
Absolutely.
where we were.
Absolutely.
Anything else from open board?
I just have one thing I wanted to throw out there, and I don't know if anybody else has witnessed the situation, but at the middle school, if you drive in, up the driveway into the bus circle, there's a one-way sign where you would normally come out, right, that points around the circle. It's the only sign that exists on the whole circle. And I've seen parents, especially recently, going into that circle, dropping kids off, turning around and coming back out. Problem with it is the kids aren't looking both ways when they're crossing because they're used to the buses going one way. And I'm afraid somebody's gonna get hurt.
Is that happening before or after school?
It's after school, and it's after dark a lot of times. So,
Paul, remind me, let's have a conversation with the SRO over there at the middle school blocking.
Still makes it pretty high, maybe there's a sign versus under
no, the one sign you can see, and it's out there at the corner, but there's nothing else the whole way around, so people don't pay attention to it at the corner once they get into the circle. You know what I'm saying?
Matt, I didn't see you sit down. We'll have the conversation with Malecki tomorrow about that.
And that's just a tough entrance anyway, because you have one sign that says no parking before 3 PM, but then the next sign says only buses.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so,
It's a
yeah,
little confusing.
definitely room for clarification on that one. Anything else, open board? I have one
Andy,
thing,
I was
but-
just wondering, with several meetings ago, we talked about having meetings, having breakfast with the board or something like that. Is that happening? I haven't heard anything since, and I've had.
Andy wasn't hungry.
We would love to, couple thoughts. One, definitely waiting till post the winter and figuring out a date. So at the next meeting, we'll talk about some possible dates for that. But yeah. Yeah, the goal was just before the end of the year to do that. So yeah, it will be. All right, I just want to throw out there for Mr. Colabufo at the next meeting or whenever it makes sense, you know, this new red flag law that, I think it's officially passed, but if we have a discussion down the road about one, I think there's significant risk to district for that. I think as a board we need to understand that.
Let me just,
And that's leaving my personal commentary out of it.
let me just say, we've already, as a county, Chris Todd asked Bethany Central, our lawyer, to come in to present. So that should be happening within the next 10 days. Hopefully that, if that happens before our next board meeting, then we'll absolutely have an update on that.
City's cost? Just kidding.
Yeah.
Just kidding.
It's
I'm
not
just-
the red flag.
Yeah, so basically, if the law in general sense says if a teacher, and I don't even know if it applies to all staff or just teachers, but that if they see a quote warning sign that, and for some reason in their professional opinion, would make them a less than ideal candidate to get a permit for a firearm, that they report it. So what that does to us as a district for.
What liability would we hold in that?
Sure. So there's another thing though, since we're talking on this topic, there's something that was just recently passed, like a week ago, and that is the Child Victim Act. So basically what this means is if you have anybody that has ever been convicted of something in your district, but the statute of limitations of 10 years for an arrest has expired, this now goes back to anything, I believe, after 1966, that there is no statute of limitations. So this came out for a couple other big organizations that are out there, not education, but it's all grouped together. And so what this basically means, we don't quite yet know what that's going to mean for insurance, for school districts, but what we were kind of told is to come back. This is something that we heard at NISCUS, all the superintendents, is to come back. And here's the problem with that. We've had a couple different law firms now. And the other problem is there could be people that have passed away that were witnesses to all of this. So all we now know is that those people can legally, and it's out there. It's nothing that's a secret right now of me saying. But basically somebody can now say, this happened to me 15 or 16 years ago. I realize statute of limitations are up, but now they could sue. So these are all things right now we're working on. I just wanted to let you all know. All right.
Thank you. Anything else from the board? All right, we'll move into items for action and discussion. I'll make, oh, sorry. Man, I did it again. Didn't mean to skip the report.
Superintendent report, here we go. Pretty quick with this, some great stuff. Congratulations to the members of the Cadet Guard, Junior Varsity, and Varsity Winter Guards who had outstanding performances on Saturday at the Home Winter Guard Show. The Cadet Guard placed 6th in their class, while the Junior Varsity Guard placed 3rd in their class out of 6 competing guards. The Varsity Winter Guard placed 1st in their class among 5 competing guards, and the Varsity Guard also had the highest score of all 36 guards who competed in the home show. Over the weekend, the Junior Varsity and Varsity placed 1st in their respective divisions at the CNS show. The high school winter drum line scored above 3 other drum lines this past weekend. Great job. Congratulations to the Red Hawk Robotics Club on their outstanding success at the New York State Championships of X tournament on Saturday. The middle school team placed 3rd in the semifinals but lost in the final round brackets. The high school team was undefeated through over 12 competitions and made it to the final competition of the day out of 76 teams before finally losing by 1 point. They were ranked second in the finals and won first in the skills category, which means that the high school team will be going to Kentucky over spring break for the World Championship. They did an amazing job. Winners of the Central Square Middle School Battle of the Books, the golden 8 balls consisted of Jordan Jordan Bryhoff, Zachary Card, and Sydney Foot. Winter scholar athlete teams, boys and girls basketball, girls indoor track and field, rifle, and girls bowling. Congratulations to the following CTE students who attended the Skills USA regional competition at SUNY Morrisville on February 8th. Third place, Aaliyah DeChano, nail care, Kate Spire, nurse assistant, Brittany Kogel, job interview, Madison Curry, and Destiny Gallipo, promotional bulletin board. Second place, Gabrielle Glaude, photography. William Monica, precision heavy equipment. Taylor Fisher and Travis Crosby, CSI. I've seen some of the precision heavy equipment when I go to Skills USA. It's pretty amazing what they can do with this heavy equipment. It's phenomenal. First place, Tyler Young, precision heavy equipment. DECA students that placed at the New York State competition on March 6th through 8th. Third place, Caitlin Meagle, public relations campaign, and Robert Howley, public relations campaign. Top 10, Quinn Ames, automotive services marketing. Jack McGurk, quick serve restaurant management. Andrew Amon, accounting applications. Kirsten Lorraine, principles of hospitality and tourism. Venya Velez, principles of finance. Abigail Day, principles of business management. And finally, Emma Savides, principles of marketing. Thank you.
Excellent. Sorry for jumping the gun on you again, Mr. Colbuco. With that, I will make a motion that we discuss item F1. Actually, it's not a motion yet. We're going to discuss it first. We need to make a nomination for our city board representative. This is a 3-year term. So our candidates are Vanessa Haskins, Randy Hoyt, and Greg Minch. This will be a roll call vote, so, and I'll do this alphabetically for the board members. When I call your name, we'll record your vote. The person receiving a quorum and the highest majority will be our recommendation to city. So we'll submit that name. Once we determine the name, then we will read the resolution. And then that will come back to us with the candidates from the other 2 school districts up this year, and we'll vote on all 3, I believe, next month. So with that, so again, if you can just respond with either Haskins, Hoyt, or Minch, I'll record your vote.
Andy, just to clarify, the board has the right to select 1, 2, or 3 people.
Yeah, so each individual board member, you can say one name, you can say multiple, and technically as a board, we could submit more than one name. Yep.
And I would just like to make it on record that philosophically, I disagree with that methodology, just for the record. I think each board member should have 1 vote and 1 vote alone. And I understand it, but I just want to put that out there for the record.
Yep, I agree. All right, so when your name's called, you can respond with the last name of the person that you would suggest. Mr. Bedworth?
Vanessa and Randy.
Mr. Buddy?
Haskins?
Mrs. Fishman?
Haskins.
Mr. Loye?
Haskins.
Mr. Martin? Haskins? Mr. McCarthy?
Vanessa Haskins.
Mrs. Nickerson is absent today, so Mr. Patch?
Haskins.
And Ms. Wood?
Mr. Hoyt and Mr. Minch.
All right, again, I'll say what I said last time, and then we'll move to the resolution. We are in a great spot as a district to have 3 qualified people willing to invest the time to represent us on the city board. And nothing against any of the candidates, but the reality is that based on the vote, the Central Square School District would nominate Vanessa Haskins So I will make a motion for item F1 with the following resolution. To have Mrs. Vanessa Haskins be nominated to serve as our representative on the city board. Can I get a second?
Second.
Mr. Loyer. So let me just read the resolution. It was motioned by Mr. Martin, seconded by Mr. Loyer, that Ms. Vanessa Haskins be nominated to serve as a representative for the city board. Any discussion? There being none, all those in favor? All those opposed? Mrs. Wood, and any abstentions? Thank you. With that, the motion carries. And Pearl, is there anything else we need to do, or will you be submitting that? Perfect. Thank you very much. All right, with that, move to item F2, the approval of the 2019-2020 district instructional calendar. Can I get a motion to accept that?
I'll make the motion.
Mr. McCarthy, can I get a second? By Mrs. Fishman, any discussion? All those in favor?
Is it accurate?
I believe it is.
All those in favor, sorry. It's unanimous, thank you. I'll make a motion for item F3, the approval of the bid for Baruchin Capital Outlay Project. Can I get a second?
Second.
Mr. McCarthy, any discussion on that? All those in favor? Thank you. And can I get a motion for item F4, designation of a hearing officer in the Section 75 hearing? Let me just say this before the motion is made. The motion is that the Central Square School District Board of Education hereby designates Ronald Mendrick Esquire as the hearing officer in the Section 75 hearing for employee ID number 2322 effective January 30th, 2019. That's all we're doing. We're approving the hearing officer. Any questions outside of that can't be discussed here. So if someone has something that they need to know before they vote on that, we would need to go to executive session. So is there any need?
We're going to make the motion first.
Thank you.
I'll make the motion.
Mr. McCarthy was the motion. I'll second Mr. Loyer with the second. Sorry. Any discussion? All those in favor? Thank you. That is unanimous. All right. I'll make a motion to accept item G, the consent agenda. Yeah, it's up there, so I don't need to read everything.
In its entirety?
Second? In its entirety. Thank you.
I'll second.
Mr. McCarthy, any discussion on G? All those in favor? Unanimous, thank you. And can I get a motion for item H in its entirety, personnel?
I'll
Mrs.
second.
Wood, second by Mr. McCarthy. Any discussion on H? All those in favor? It's unanimous, thank you. And I make a motion that the Central Square School District Board of Education hereby moves into executive session to discuss the following. The employment history and matters leading to the tenure of particular people. How many?
Not in that order.
Yes. How many people?
9.
9 particular people. The potential acquisition, sale, or lease of property because public discussion would substantially affect the value of the property at issue. And we will discuss matters which would imperil the public safety if disclosed. Can I get a second?
Second.
Mr. Loy, any discussion? And sorry, that is with no action to follow tonight.
Second.
All those in favor? Thank you very much. Yeah, so like last time, the cabinet invited into executive session with the board tonight.